not all of you are technologically advanced, but in order to change a screen, you don't need software to pair it. But Apple came up with the solution, and they said, if you're not using our software to pair the screen, we're not going to give you full access onto the screen. Lighting, for example, the light will be maybe dimmer or a different color, and they're controlling that through software. I'm just trying to fix your screen so you can go and come here and do your job, and I'm trying to support my family and my community. That's what we're doing. We don't want to steal any property, any intelligence. If you have a console that you want to work and play on it, and your charging port it's broken, you don't need software to fix that. You can micro-soldering or solder another port on it, and your console is up and running. If you have to send it out, it would take 3 weeks for you to get your console back. And I know how much you love gaming, therefore I want to fix it fast for you so you're back and running. That's what we're doing. We're trying to help community, and we're trying to make good to people. We're not trying to take anything from anybody away.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? There being none, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next up is Jessa Jones from iPad Rehab Microsoldering. Jessa Jones? Oh, there you are.
All right, how does this work? Let me try to fix it. Okay, there, fixed. Have you tried turning it off and on? The old classic. I'm Jessa Jones. I'm here from Rochester, New York. I flew here just to come and talk to you guys today. I was a stay-at-home mom, and then I started fixing broken Apple devices primarily, and other devices as well. I've now trained 7 other stay-at-home moms and 1 stay-at-home dad to also fix these devices. We've fixed over 30,000 devices. Less than 5% would have been considered repairable by authorized repair. So I wrote down some things so that I don't waste my time here. Recently, I became Apple certified. So I am Apple certified. You can see it right here. Now, this is largely meaningless. In fact, it tells you right on the back of the letter, what can you do? It says benefits of being Apple certified technician, Apple certification website. This site gives you online access to your certificate. And that's it. And that's pretty much true, because there really isn't, like you've heard from these guys, bona fide practical options for authorized repair, at least not for Apple devices and Samsung devices like I'm familiar with. So that leaves this gap here where if you, say, have an iPad, crack a screen, there is no authorized repair whatsoever for anything that you can do to break your iPad, period. No service whatsoever. What if you, like these guys, lose your, drop a phone in the toilet, now you've lost your memories, there's no authorized repair for data recovery. And then even things like a really classic problem, iPhone 7 epidemic failure of audio IC. Apple will, if you go there, they will tell you that it is a made-up thing they've never heard of before, even though we know that their internal in-house support ranks that as the #1 problem that they're hearing calls about. So we have this long history of being misled by manufacturers. And what I wanted to talk to you, one thing I'm kind of afraid about is that the new independent repair parts provider program from Apple is sort of this hand-waving, yeah, see, now we're doing right to repair, so we'll go away, unnecessary. That is not good enough. In fact, that program is quite anti-repair. So for example, iPhone 6S. If I want to go buy an iPhone 6S, it's going to cost me about $200 if I get it used on swappa.com, which is a pretty good place to get phones. If I drop that phone and I crack the screen, then the Apple certified price for that screen is $160, and the Apple certified repair price is $169. So the independent repair provider program is economically not feasible, and so it's going to be just like authorized repair, which is we don't really fix anything, we tell you everything's not repairable, and we want you to go buy a new phone. Now that sets the stage, though, for what I'm really afraid of, which is the same stuff that these guys have mentioned to you earlier today, software locks. It is true. When I heard Robin say, these guys could make it so that you can't plug in a power button. It's, coded to the device. We're seeing precedent for that. Right now, as we sit here today, iOS 13 was released, and it now, if you switch the battery, will tell you this battery was put here by Apple, and it will take away function. It will take away your battery health information. If you change your screen, you'll lose True Tone. You'll lose ambient light sensor function. If you lose your home button, you could lose your whole device because you can't press home to update, and there goes your data. So we're seeing precedent for this software lockdown. You asked, what could I do differently if this bill was passed? And for me, assuming it trickles over to New York, which I think it would, I would be able to fix more stuff. My Keurig, my Roomba, things that I would like to fix is, I would teach kids to fix. I've trained 500 people to learn how to micro solder. I love fixing. People love repair, and practical repair is such a great thing that users don't have an option to do practical repair from authorized sources. So we need bills like this. We need your support to help enable users to have the choice to roll back their software to a version that their device still supports. If you keep updating your phone, you're going to get a hardware-software mismatch, and then it doesn't work anymore. Well, how about this? Can I say, I understand there's a security risk? Give me the ability to consent. I understand I might blow myself up, fine. I understand that I may have a security risk if I want to go back and make my phone work again on the old operating system. We can't do those things. And I think the software locks are what I'm really afraid of, because we're seeing more and more and more of them coming out. That's all. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? There being none, thank you for your time and taking the time to come down.
You're welcome.
Representative Rogers is here. I didn't know you were so popular.
Thank you. I get that a lot. Well, Chair Feeney, Chair Chan, thank you so much, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify on H 2018, introduced by my colleague Claire Cronin, and the Digital Right to Repair bill. I'm sure you've heard from a lot of folks today, so I'll try not to go on too long. I have more lengthy testimony that I will submit for the record, and I'll just try to summarize the key points as I see them. H 2018 is about updating a core right of property for the digital age. That right is, of course, the long-recognized right of owners to tinker with, disassemble, service, repair, and maintain their own property. This right has been recognized in U.S. and British law for centuries. In short, once you've sold a thing, you no longer control it. Sure, you can protect your trade secrets or other intellectual property rights, patents, but you don't control the device. Instead, it's the new owner's property to do with as he or she sees fit. These two bills, also the one introduced in the Senate, recognize that basic consumer and property right and update it for the digital age. Manufacturers make a wide variety of arguments against repair, from security, trade secrets, marketing. But simply put, digital right to repair laws don't require manufacturers to make repairable devices. What it says is, if you do make a repairable device and supply your own staff with schematics and diagnostic software and the like, you have to make those available to the device owner and their agent as well. As such, digital right to repair isn't just about empowering owners, it's also about supporting small neighborhood repair shops that might support a family, while keeping repair costs lower and more convenient for literally millions of consumers. Right to repair is pro-consumer, pro-environment reform. It's designed to prolong the useful life of devices. The last 40 years has seen a steady erosion of repair. Manufacturers have stopped providing tools, parts, and information that used to come standard with new products like TVs, home appliances, vehicles. This throwaway culture is very expensive for consumers and very, very expensive for the planet, as toxic e-waste is now the single fastest growing type of waste. Finally, in this time of increasing wealth inequality and concentrations of market power by large technology firms, a digital right to repair ensures that the spoils of the coming Internet of Things are distributed throughout the economy. Let me ask, should Massachusetts give any company a green light to create a multi-billion-dollar aftermarket service and parts monopoly? Or doesn't it make more sense for the Bay State to allow residents to make a business of servicing these products for other Bay State residents? Technicians in this state making a good salary doing logic board repairs on various devices, or we can grant essentially a monopoly. So, I really appreciate your time. I thank you for your consideration. I know you're going to hear lots of arguments on this, and it's a challenging issue for the committee, but I hope this bill will get a favorable report. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. Any questions? There being none, thank you for your time. We've been joined by Representative Madaro then over here on my left. Next up is Daniel Carson from Schmidt Equipment.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, distinguished members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to testify. My name is Daniel Carson, and I represent Schmidt Equipment Incorporated. Our dealership represents John Deere construction equipment, along with product lines such as Hitachi and Wirtgen. Road building equipment. We have 5 locations in Massachusetts. We strive to bring our customers value in all we do. To do so, we spend significant capital each and every year to ensure our technicians have the latest safety and technology training. While John Deere equipment has become more sophisticated, Deere supports the customer's right to repair and has built an advanced diagnostic capability into its equipment that are available to the owner, dealers, or others. And for those customers who require even greater diagnostic capabilities, John Deere provides subscription access to Customer Service Advisor, a special diagnostic tool similar to the tools we use to support our customers. Customers should be able to expect the same level of information across all manufacturing brands. It is an appropriate solution that makes so-called right-to-repair legislation unnecessary. That is why manufacturers of tractors and combines, such as John Deere, have made an industry commitment to make available by model year 2021 the tools customers need to navigate onboard technology. In the near future, end users will have access to onboard diagnostics tools via in-cab display, wireless interface, electronic diagnostic service tools, and training on how to use both. Manufacturers and dealers will also make available manuals, product guides, and product service information. However, to the extent that the owner has the right to lawfully repair his or her equipment, John Deere recommends against unauthorized modification of the embedded software code. Providing access to the source code would only undermine the manufacturer's innovation and intellectual property rights. It would also risk data privacy and allow unauthorized and illegal tampering of safety and emissions requirements for the equipment. Modifications also create unknown liability issues for the individuals. Modifying the code, dealers who subsequently trade in modified equipment for resale, as well as subsequent owners of modified equipment. Modified software on heavy-duty equipment can create an unsafe environment for those operating the equipment, bystanders near the equipment, or those repairing the equipment. I've made my statements available to the committee here, and I'll end my testimony there.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Senator Feeney.
Thank you, Chairman Chan, and thank you for your testimony. I appreciate you being here today. So just for clarification purposes, you had mentioned that there's a commitment from, say, John Deere, I think it was the manufacturer you're talking about, to make available to the consumers diagnostics, manuals, product guides. what purpose does that serve to somebody who owns a John Deere piece of equipment if they can see that there's a problem, they have a guide, and they can tell that there's a code, but that they can't actually do anything with it unless they go to a John Deere authorized repair shop, correct? So what purpose would that serve to give a consumer that information?
I'll give you the best answer, and any information that I don't touch on, I'll make sure we'll get you a proper reply. But in the essence of the construction trade, as you know, uptime, being able to work is critical when you've bid a project and you have to come in under and try to actually make a profit on that job, right? So what you do by providing the tools, as John Deere does, as Caterpillar does, as Komatsu does, as Volvo does, is to ensure that there is a certain level of serviceability that can be handled at the owner or the customer's beck and call, if you will. The more technical stuff, yes, it does require us to go to that next level. But as an industry, we share a lot of information to make sure, because uptime and owning and operating costs are critical to these machines that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for jobs that are millions of dollars to complete on time. So that'd be my answer.
I guess my concern, in speaking about downtime, I mean, this is Massachusetts, right? In my district, I have, kind of one part of the district that's pretty rural, and I don't know that...
You need to provide more funding for road work there, Senator.
I agree with that. But my concern is that, if I have a farm in the southern part of my district and they have John Deere equipment, but they don't have access to, a John Deere dealership or a place where they can get to quickly, whereas the rest of their equipment, they can take to the small engine repair shop down the street. They can take to their independent auto. Some of them have mechanics on site, depending on the size of the farm. And my concern is that though they can fix all the rest of their equipment and their truck, because we have a right to repair auto law in Massachusetts, they can't then take this equipment that they spent a lot of money on and get that repaired, to their independent repair shop nearby, that they actually have to, travel long distances or, somewhere else. So I guess my concern, exactly like you said, is downtime. And one of the things that these, proponents, the farming proponents at least, have brought to me is, look, we have independent work on all the rest of our equipment. We would like the same for, for this equipment. So,
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? There being none, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is David Dimmaduk, PhD, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force, retired. Lieutenant Colonel, come on up. Welcome.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'll keep my remarks very brief. I support right to repair because I think it makes it better engineering. I spent a lot of time working with large military engineering. I did engineering all my life. My concern on the consumer front is once products are serviced by the manufacturer by authorized agents, there isn't the information to actually do the repairs. Modern washing machines that happened recently to me, to other family members, they're out of warranty. They used my speakerphone to talk to the authorized repair shop. They said it was broken. If I had the data, I think I could have understood what was wrong with that sensor and fixed it. And I'd encourage even looking how to expand this law to make out of warranty engineering data available to keep from junking very expensive equipment. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up, Paul Roberts from SecurePairs.org. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Feeney and Chan, Vice Chairs Welsh and Livingstone, and members of the Joint Committee. My name is Paul Roberts. I'm a resident of Belmont, Massachusetts, and a lifelong resident of the state. I'm the founder of SecureRepairs.org, which is a not-for-profit group of more than 150 cybersecurity experts who support the creation of new consumer protection laws enshrining a digital right to repair. I speak to you today to support for Senate Bill 107 and House Bill 218, an act relative to the digital right to repair, and also to answer any questions you might have, particularly in regard to cybersecurity risk and the Internet of Things. Let me start by thanking all of you for scheduling today's hearing and for making time available for this important issue to have a proper airing. You've shown through your actions that you take the proposed digital right to repair legislation seriously and wish to hear all sides before making a decision. I thank you all for that and for the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to say that, you're hearing both arguments for and against the digital right to repair. At the risk of oversimplifying, I'd like to say that most of the arguments you're hearing against this are not substantive, and most of the arguments you're hearing for it are. I'm going to talk specifically just about the cybersecurity issues that have been raised by a number of the opponents of this bill, and the suggestion that should we grant a digital right to repair to owners and independent repair professionals, that somehow we're inviting some kind of cyber apocalypse in which connected devices are going to be vulnerable to hacking and data theft. I've been writing about cybersecurity for 17 years. I started covering cybersecurity as a journalist in 2002. And what I'll say is that the worst case scenario that the manufacturers and their representatives are warning you about is more or less already upon us. We already have a huge problem with insecure connected devices in our environment. As an example of this, I will point to the 2016 Mirai botnet attack that took out a New Hampshire company called Dyn, and by extension, Dyn's customers, who included Twitter, Amazon.com, and major retailers. That was a botnet that consisted of compromised webcams, video recorders, broadband routers, and a variety of other IoT devices. Now, note, we have a major botnet attack, and there have been many more since then of Internet of Things devices, but we have no digital right to repair. That should suggest to you that any link between cybersecurity problems with the Internet of Things and digital right to repair are not substantive. We already have a problem. The source of that botnet, Mirai, was not cyber criminals reading schematics, and it was not cyber criminals using diagnostic software for webcam, VRs, and the like. It was poor quality embedded software on devices that are already deployed out in homes, businesses, and other environments. The cyber criminals simply used to attack. So I would say to you that this is already a problem, and in essence what OEMs are saying is that they want to keep their software protected from prying eyes. That's probably not surprising. A audit by the group, the Cyber Independent Test Lab, of some 6,000 firmware versions, software, so this is firmware is the software that runs on embedded devices, going back 15 years from 2003 to 2018, found that during that time there was no improvement in the security of that embedded device software over 15 years. Security through obscurity is not a thing. Keeping the workings of software and devices secret does not keep them more secure. In fact, hackers, cyber criminals are very resourceful. They're also very determined. One of the many benefits of a digital right to repair, opening up the devices to maintenance and service from independent repair shops as well as owners, is to make them more accessible, understandable, and in some ways to hold OEMs and manufacturers to account for the quality of their software. So I thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, either about what I said or about what some of the other industry representatives said.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? There being none, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Next up is Ray, I'm going to mess this one up too, Pafau. Fowler from Repair Cafe Ambassador.
Thank you for allowing me to testify, Chairman Chan, Feeney, and members of the Joint Committee. My name is Ray Fowler, and I live in Bolton, Massachusetts. I'm a retired software engineer, now a member of the Rotary Club of Neshoba Valley and Bolton Local, which is our town sustainability group. And I'm going to talk about a little different perspective. I grew up kind of tinkering with things all along. And then about 6 years ago, I started thinking about maybe helping other people to learn how to fix their things and get their things repaired rather than, throwing them away and buying new or getting frustrated with things. So we ended up in our town, we started an event, a repair event that we call Repair Cafe. And the original idea started about 10 years ago in the Netherlands. A woman named Martina Postma kind of got this idea and said, we're going to start holding events. And the way it works is we set up in a school and a bunch of volunteers come, and then we invite people, anybody who wants to come who has something they can carry in that's broken, and we try to help them fix it for free, so that they can keep using their things. We keep things out of the landfill, and we save them money. So as far as, we'll look at anything that comes in, but as far as the electronic side of things, we get all kinds of things. We get air conditioners, vacuum cleaners, computers, laptops, cell phones, fans, dehumidifiers. So we then try to help the guest fix it. And we end up with, of course, we don't know what we're going to get from one time to the next, but we typically end up with about a 75% success rate in terms of being able to repair things and have people be able to keep using them. When we started in September 2013, we were the second repair event in Massachusetts. The first one was out in Pittsfield in early 2013. And now, over the last several years, we've been helping other towns get started. So we're now up to 33 towns in Massachusetts that are running these repair events. And it could be ours, we run 3 times a year. Others run once a month or maybe just once a year. The key is you want to keep your volunteers happy, because if they stop coming and you don't have anybody to do the repairs. So that's why we've chosen to do it 3 times a year, and it seems to be working very well. There are worldwide now over 2,000 towns, groups that are running these repair events, so it's really catching on. So anyway, the reason that I support this bill is it will give our repair volunteers a chance to have more likelihood of being able to repair the different events. If we can get access to, repair information, schematics, and so on, then that's going to help us help community members and people in the Commonwealth and throughout the world to keep using their items. Any questions?
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the membership? There being none, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is Dottie Jannette from Omni Tech Sales.
Thank you, Chairs Chan, Feeney, and members of the committee. My name is Dottie Jannette, and I live in Easton, neighbor to Walpole. Now I know where to go get my iPhones repaired too. I'm here to testify in favor of digital right to repair. For more than 20 years now, I've been working in the computer industry selling maintenance contracts to big data centers that have server storage and network equipment. And back in the day, the OEMs used to work with the independent providers because it was really about they were selling hardware and they really didn't want the maintenance. But what they realized is if they gave data centers or any kind of computer users the ability to extend the life cycle of their products, that meant they couldn't sell them hardware fast enough. So they started to clamp down on some of the regulations, making it harder for independent companies. They did set up some independent companies that they called VARs, value-added resellers, but they were essentially working for the OEMs and providing them money back in return. So the true independents were really struggling with that. If I remember, I had a customer that had an $800,000 server. The OEM wanted to charge them $100,000 a year to support that. The independent company I worked with could have done it for $50,000. And so what the OEM started doing then is saying they wouldn't give you the software updates unless you had a contract with them. So imagine on your computers that you use every day, if all of a sudden they said, well, we're going to give you, we're going to sell you that, but now to use it, you have to pay us more money, even though the guy down the street could repair it. So they really kind of hold you hostage with that. And I guess it's really all about the money. When they can't sell as much hardware as they like, they try to clamp down on it on the software end. What happens when all of this equipment is obsolete because you can't get anyone to service it? It goes into the landfills, and that's a real problem, as other people have stated. So I think that this is really very similar arguments for and against, the same way as the automotive right to repair bill was. And I have to say that sometimes the opponents of this make it sound like rocket science and like the world's going to come to an end if we don't move forward with this. And the questions that you've all been asking are really great questions, and I thank you for your time in looking into this. So.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the members? There being none, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Next up is Jana Dominez from Burke. Yeah, sure. Going down. Oh, Ryan, and also Ryan Powell. Okay.
Good afternoon, Chairman Chan and Feeney, members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Janet Dominitz. I'm the director of MassPurg, a statewide citizen-based advocacy organization. We represent thousands of members across the state, and we're here today to support digital right to repair. I have many reasons for doing so. I will limit my testimony today to 3 of them. First of all, consumer protection. I assume I'm not the only one who had a grandmother who said, use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. But we can't follow that adage when companies like Apple intentionally design products to quickly become obsolete. I'm referring to Batterygate, in which Apple was discovered to be slowing down iPhone batteries, which they only admitted after being exposed by a consumer. That's just one example of big companies doing a huge disservice with their products to consumers. The result is Americans dispose of over 400,000 cell phones every day, in large part because companies design them to be obsolete or difficult to repair. The second reason is public health. We've heard already that electronic waste is a huge and growing concern in this country. If you break down that figure of 400,000 cell phones around the country, 8,000 of them are disposed every day in Massachusetts. And that means electronic waste is going into our landfills and incinerators. It's estimated that 40% of the heavy metals in the United States landfills come from discarded electronics. So we need to reckon with the public health problem of disposing this kind of material. The third reason is environmental protection. Working backwards from disposal, by far the largest impact of consumer electronics is in the manufacturing of them to begin with. One study found that building a new smartphone represents approximately 90% of the device's total CO2 emissions for 2 years. If these devices were made to last, and repair is key to that goal, less of them would be made and resulting in less damage to the environment. In summary, by far the easiest, cheapest, cleanest, and most sustainable way to address waste problems is to keep these products in use as long as we can, but repair is being blocked, and that's why we need this reform. We need to get back to that first word in the mantra that everyone knows: reduce what we use, reduce what we dispose of, reduce our impact on the planet. Right to repair literally gives us the tools we need to reduce consumer ripoffs, public health, and environmental pollution. Thank you for your consideration.
Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm a junior at UMass Boston and the chapter chair for our Perk chapter. I'm coming to speak on behalf of just as a consumer that have felt these grievances towards manufacturers. 3 specifically, I've had a smartphone for about 10 years, an iPhone for 7-ish, and each and every one of them has issues with its charger port. One specific one, I accidentally dropped it and the screen cracked, my fault. So I brought it to the Apple store. They said, well, we can't fix it, but we can send it out and have it be in the shop or wherever it has to go for about 3 weeks, and have me not have a phone for 3 weeks, or have something that's not resembling the phone I had in a society or world that we need to stay connected for me to be able to go to school, check and update with any sort of my classes on my phone and whatnot. And then actually I went to the kiosk to get the screen repaired, and it broke within about 2 months after it was repaired, because the screen that was replaced wasn't actually the screen that needed to be put on the phone, because it was not the actual screen that Apple provides when you first buy the phone. Another one is I actually had a PS4 growing up in high school, and I actually really appreciate Chair Chan bringing up the console issue, because this is exactly what happened. I sent it out to get repaired after about a year or so, and it was out for about a month at Sony, where we were told to send it to them, and it came back, and the issue still persisted, actually. They didn't even fix it themselves, which is even more ironic if they're the manufacturer themselves. And also, growing up with my mom, we actually had a washer and dryer, where the washer broke down after about, I don't know, a year or so. It was our first washer and dryer with my mom, and we were taking it to the laundromat for a long time before we got the washer and dryer. And the washing machine broke. We couldn't get it fixed ourselves, so we had to hire somebody from the appliance place that we bought it from, Cam Appliance on Cape Cod. And after 3 or 4 visits, them not being able to figure out what was wrong with the washing machine that they sold to us, we're told to just have to buy a new one. And at that point, I just didn't think that was any sort of an issue, that was something that we had to do. And it seems more and more nowadays we're given problems and sold a solution, and it's almost indicative by things that are put on chargers nowadays to make sure your charger doesn't scrunch up and break, rather than making sure that the chargers themselves don't do that over time, as the company themselves should do. But thank you so much. I don't want the beeper to go off, so I'm going to cut it off right now. It's been scaring me the whole time.
Yeah, the chargers, the alarm thing is no fun, as everyone's discovered. Any questions? There being none, thank you for so much taking the time to come up.
No, thank you too.
Cool. Next up is Kristina Fisher from TechNet.
Good afternoon, Chair Chan, Chair Feeney. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify before you this afternoon. My name is Kristina Fisher. I'm the Executive Director for the Northeast for TechNet. Since I've been before you before, I won't go through the whole spiel on who TechNet is. But I did want to first start by saying that we're here in opposition to the right to repair bills. We've heard a lot of conversations here today, so I'll try not to repeat what's been said before me. But I think something that's resonated with me is something that you heard early on here, is this is legislation in search of a problem. If the problem that we're seeing here is a concern for consumer choice, I think that it's been demonstrated today that there is consumer choice. You can go to your original manufacturer to get a repair, you can go to an authorized dealer to get a repair, or you can go to an independent repair shop to get a repair. There's plenty of consumer choice. Consumers can choose which electronics they buy, and they can choose whether, if they don't like certain manufacturers, to choose other ones in the future. But the reality is that some of the people that you're hearing from today greatly seek to profit off of this legislation being passed. Second, if another conversation that we've had today is about e-waste and recycling. I don't think that's really the intended goal. I think it's an additional talking point. But if we do have concerns about e-waste and recycling in the state, then we should be having a conversation on how best to improve our e-waste and recycling programs. This legislation has been filed in over 21 states, and no state has passed this legislation, and that's for a reason, including several of your neighboring states which have looked at this, including Vermont, which I know was mentioned earlier, but I think it's worth noting that they conducted a 4-month task force, and ultimately that report resulted in no legislation being filed the next session. I guess I want to conclude just by mentioning that Massachusetts has always prided itself in being pro-innovation, and passing this legislation would send the unintended message to the business community that if you innovate and you create, that you no longer have that value to yourself, and that it's allowed to be shared with others. So I encourage the committee to think thoughtfully about this before advancing this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for individual? There being none, thank you very much for your time. Next up is Dan Jaffrey. I think that's how you pronounce it. Jaffe.
Good afternoon, Chairman Paul Feeney, and also Mr. Chan. Let me give a little history of myself. I'm an electrical engineer from way back. I've been in the industry of computers for over 35 years. Presently, I'm semi-retired and eventually will be fully retired. In my efforts on my way out the door, I want to be sure that education is passed forward. So I spent a lot of time on a forum called iFixit. In fact, I am so desired, I get over 500,000 hits per month. So 500,000 a month. And that's actually on the low side. So my answers to those people who are desperate to get their equipment refixed are often used to help them out. You've heard a lot of discussion from a lot of different people here for and against this bill. I am personally very much for it because, in truth, you're getting a lot of disinformation from the opposing group. There is no opportunities for a lot of this equipment to be repaired independently as they claim. These pieces of apparatus are then collected by an independent and shipped off to a manufacturer. They're not repaired locally. Apple, as a good example, an authorized independent will be picking up the equipment. Some minor things might be done, but the majority of the repairs are sent off. So that's nonsensical. As far as the devices themselves, a lot of them today now have what's called DRM, digital rights management, in protecting the individual elements of the device, example, batteries and display assemblies, so that you can't use just any display or any battery. In fact, you can take two exact phones, let's say 11s, iPhones 11s, and you take the battery out of one and put it into the other. It will not be recognized by that other phone, even though it's a real Apple battery. And that gets into that DRM because each element in that phone is ID'd only to that phone. So you can't even use a real iPhone battery from one phone to another phone, which is ridiculous. Our industry collectively is in dire need of being able to have access to the appropriate equipment to first diagnose, to get the parts, and to also be able to repair the device, as well as the information. Some of us make the effort to learn a device by buying one and tearing it apart and then documenting it, which is in third hand versus first hand. And we really need to get off that realm because we really want to repair these devices for the benefit of the consumer. I handed you a little document there in regards to carbon. Carbon is the big question here. As you know, carbon in many different elements is becoming an outfall into our environment. And the question of carbon is the most important thing. And if these devices aren't fixed, then you're adding more carbon into our environment. I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you for taking time. Any questions from the membership? There being none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I got Louis Rosman from Rosman Group, Inc.
Hi, my name is Louis, and I run a repair shop in New York City. Before I get started, I think it's important to address a point that Mrs. Fisher just brought up, which is that there are many people that are seeking to profit from this legislation, and I agree that it's an important point. I think it's important to look at who paid to be here today versus who is being paid to be here today when looking at who is opposing the legislation and who is in favor of that legislation. That being said, let's just go back to a general idea that I have, which is that law is downstream from culture. Culture happens first. Now, about 3.5 years ago, I made an educational video showing you what to do if you have water spilled into a MacBook and it gets in the trackpad area. I showed how to replace a fuse that blew in this customer's case so that their keyboard and trackpad didn't work. And 3 months later, I heard from a law firm of Kilpatrick & Townsend asking on behalf of Apple if I would take this video down. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because the appliance lobbyist over there said that this is a solution in search of a problem. However, I don't often see people paying $1,200 an hour to create when there's no problem. There is a problem, which is that when I show you where a fuse is in a product, I can get in trouble for that. There were also individuals that brought up that authorized repair is very good and it does the job very well. But then I'd also bring up the question as to a CBC News piece that came out last year where there was a bent pin in a cable of a laptop and they wanted $2,000 to fix this. I fixed it on camera in 30 seconds by bending back the cable. When it comes to the video games console manufacturers, if authorized repair is so good there, why is it that if the video plug breaks on your PlayStation that the authorized repair time is 3 to 6 weeks to fix that when I can teach a 16-year-old how to do that job inside of 5 to 15 minutes? The issue here is that the culture has changed, but the law has stayed the same. The laws that are being used to say that I shouldn't have access to a document that says where the fuse is, or if I show this, where this keyboard fuse is, that I could be in trouble and have my business in jeopardy, is a law that was created 50, 70, 90 years ago when the culture was different. Back then, if you open your refrigerator, you open your television, there's a schematic there that tells you how to do all of this. I, as a normal person, not even a repair shop owner, could call up the company and say, can I get this thing for my vacuum and my radio? Or you could just go to Radio Shack and get it. Now you have to see how it is today, where if you have a MacBook Air and the SMC chip that reads your battery and can tell what your battery percentages dies, I can't replace that chip easily because it has firmware on it. If I tried to read that firmware, the chip will stop working. It's very similar to this TV show called 24, where Jack Bauer would interrogate terrorists, and if he's like, where's the bomb? The terrorist would take a cyanide pill and go, you're never going to find out. The chip does that. It erases itself. This is something that was unheard of 50 or 70 years ago, but the laws have not evolved. I think that the law needs to evolve to keep up with the technology, and the last excuse that I heard was, this has been denied in every state, why Boston? Why Massachusetts? Wouldn't that have been a great attitude to have 250 years ago? That's it.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the members? Senator Feeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. Although I think Chloe would have been able to help Jack Bauer figure anything out. You mentioned, you said if you show, I believe you used the example of a fuse. If you show a consumer where that fuse is, or if you figure that out and repair that, that you could potentially be in trouble, or your business could be in trouble. Are there stories of independent repair shops that are contacted by manufacturers and that do get sued or, in trouble? Could you just maybe elaborate on that, or what your fear is that could happen to you?
My fear in terms of it happening to me is that ICE replied saying, if you want this video down, don't call me from your law firm, file a public DMCA claim where you have to say what the problem is. That creates the PR nightmare of them having to say, we don't want our customers to know where a fuse is. They never did because of public backlash. But realistically speaking, at any given time, they could go through with it and they would probably win the case. I've heard of other companies being contacted similarly. There are people here who post on iFixit Answers. iFixit is a business that has been contacted several times over things on their website, although I don't have exact details to it, and they're not here to speak on it. But it's something that we all live in fear of.
So you post a video, and then you get contacted by an attorney representing a manufacturer. And what does that attorney tell you? Are you liable? Are they going to sue you? They tell you to just
trade
demand
secret,
to take
copyright,
it down?
this, that, and the other. And the thing that's interesting to me is the document that showed on screen. It's essentially something that's already sold to you. So when you buy the machine, you can tell where that is just by measuring. It's simply sold to me in a different form if it's sold via schematic versus via the actual product. It would be like if I sold you a book in Latin and then somebody else gave it to you in English. You already have the book in front of you. It's just confusing. You could easily difficultly more to say, translate it to English if you'd like to using an online translator. It's just a pain in the ass.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Next up is a panel. We have Gay Gordon, Nathan Proctor, Roni Sukhiya. They're representing Open Blockchain, Electronics Recycling, and the Repair Association. Yeah, yes, I have. Did we get everybody right?
Yes.
All right.
Guess I'll go first. Hello, everybody. My name is Nathan Proctor. I work as the National Campaign Director for the Right to Repair for USPIRG, which is the kind of parent organization for MassPIRG. I brought a written testimony. I'm not going to go through it. I kind of want to address a couple things that we've heard so far. Just to clarify a couple things. I mean, you've all heard the arguments now. You know that this is an important issue for environmental advocates. You know it's an important issue for small businesses. You know it's an important issue for consumer advocates. But now you face a difficult set of contradicting, fact landscapes about what this means and what it will do in the world. And I think that Lewis put it really well, that what's happening is that the companies that make our stuff are trying to change the social compact about what it means to own something and what they have to provide us as owners of products, whether that's a cell phone or a computer or a washing machine or a tractor. Do we have the right to use that as we see fit, or do they have to protect us from making bad choices or from unintentional decisions that we might make on our own? And to me, that's just not the social contract that we set up. Apple sold me the phone and now I own it. John Deere sells me the tractor and then I own it. They're not in charge of making sure that I don't accidentally run into my garage with it. They're not expected to shut off the engine if I was to drive it in the wrong part of the whatever, right? We are in charge of our own actions, but we don't control our own stuff. A couple things I wanted to clarify. We talked a couple times about authorized repair and authorized repair networks as being a way of training and giving data. You should, it's too bad that we don't have one of those contracts. I could probably show you a contract that Whirlpool would send out, for example, for how to become an authorized Whirlpool technician. It's 40 pages. There's nothing about having to know anything about fixing, machinery in there. It's all about what kind of truck to drive, what kind of uniforms to wear, how much you're allowed to charge. It's not information, it's a contractual agreement to join and be beholden to the interests of that company. So when we say authorized repair, we mean manufacturer-controlled repair. people should be able to do what they want with the stuff that they buy. One other thing is that we talked a little bit about basically having access to repair information as being the same as having access to be able to overrun security measures. And that's just having access to hardware information and having the ability to break cryptographic software locks are like completely unrelated. And I would love to elucidate that more if you guys are interested, but I'm running out of time and I wanted to honor the time. Again, thank you so much, chairs, for letting me speak.
Hello, Mr. Chairmans and members of the committee. Rep. Rogers pretty much stole my entire presentation, so I'm going to wing it. A couple of things that came up is that OEMs are selectively deciding that they want to be responsible for us as customers. Every document that they present to you says otherwise. Every contract of sale, every warranty, and every end-user license agreement says they're not responsible. They disclaim absolutely everything up to the limits set by Massachusetts state law, which I believe is simply a test of gross negligence. So unless they are grossly negligent, they are not responsible for your safety. They're not responsible for your enjoyment, and they're not responsible for anything that you might do vis-a-vis emissions laws or any other laws. You as the person have those responsibilities. For example, if you are texting while driving and you get a citation, you get the ticket, not Apple and not GM. So if you keep in mind who owns it and who's responsible, almost everything that you will hear in opposition essentially makes no sense, because they are being very selective about what they want to claim as their responsibility. In fact, I would say that the only selectivity test is based on money. If they can force you to buy only their repair services at the prices that they set and block other repairs, they will be able to control how you purchase and how often you have to purchase a replacement. Now, one of the big problems is that we've done some studies since the last time I came before you that basically confirm that 90% of the products that currently are not repairable outside of the OEM. 90%. We're talking 90% of all the appliances, 90% of all the computers, 90% of all the farm implements, 90% of televisions. You can't, in fact, I think it might be 100% on TVs. It's a very, very bad situation. It has only gotten worse, and there's not much worse for it to get because we're no longer able to fix the things that we buy, which means we can't resell them either. So there's a lot of problems with here. I'm very proud that we actually had 25 states overall since we started with our first bill in 2014. And I'm really proud of us as an organization. We are all volunteer. Everybody that's here today paid their own way to get here. They took off time from work, and they believe in this strongly enough that they showed up with no paycheck. So I really think that we are doing what we're doing because we believe in it. We are here as consumers advocating for all consumers. Yes, some of us have repair businesses. I don't make a dime on any of this stuff. Some people here do, some don't. They're just passionate. They want to be able to continue to repair things for consumers as we've always done. So I thank you very much.
Hello, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Roni Sukhiya. I'm a resident of Lexington, Mass., and I run a company called TradeLoop, which for 22 years we've been a service business for the electronics recycling industry. I don't repair goods. I don't have a vested interest here other than I see what happens in my customer base, and it upsets me. And I'm going to talk about something new today, I think. I'll give you something new to think about. So, just to say, all of the things you've heard, early obsolescence is a big problem, not just in the sector. It's a problem for the viability of the reuse portion of the sector. Many of my customers end up going out of business because of this problem. And it's probably a contributing factor to a great extent in the general e-waste problem as well. But I'm going to talk about something else, blockchain. So I have I run an alliance called the Open Blockchain for Asset Disposition Alliance, which has about 100 members now, all of the leaders in our industry, including all the trade associations, the compliance organizations like SERI, who's responsible for the responsible recycling standard that most of the world's recyclers use. and Everledger, which is the leading blockchain company, we've received a grant from the DOE to set up a lithium-ion battery recycling program nationwide, because we only collect 5% of those, and they contain cobalt and lithium, which are of national defense interest because we only get them from China, as well as a grant in Barcelona, a lot of stuff. So Fortune 500 has adopted blockchain without going into the technology itself. It's almost every single Fortune 500 company now has a team doing blockchain, and the manufacturers are no exception. Seagate is the one I'm going to use as an example of how this can go wrong for us. Not because Seagate's bad, in fact I think they're one of the good ones, but they're farthest ahead. They produced a technology which they're now embedding in all new drives, which is essentially a fingerprint. They call it an EID, connected to the blockchain so that later on that drive can be checked for authenticity. And no plans announced as to what that check will do, but let's look at GM and OnStar, okay? Everybody knows when you use OnStar, if you are caught for speeding, or if rather police, car stolen, or let's say you don't make your lease payments, they have the ability to shut the car off remotely. So you can see where this technology that Seagate is the first one to implement is going to lead. The manufacturers will have the cryptographic ability to talk to that device for the rest of its life, long after it's left their control. And they will have the ability to shut that device off or prevent it. So imagine you, with Internet of Things, IoT, and 5G coming, everything is going to be connected, all of it to the blockchain. So now you buy a toaster on eBay and it stops working because you're not authorized. So that said, this is a big problem. Like you folks were talking about, it's the end of ownership as we possibly know it. Technology is moving much faster, and the problem is going to get much worse, and the only solution we can't is legislation. We need to get in front of this issue. So thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the membership? There being none, thank you very much for your time. For the dedication of the audience, we're down to 5 sign-up sheets and no individual, no panels. If anyone wishes to testify, please. Oh, there's another sheet. All right, 6. We have 6. I feel like it's Sesame Street. 6 sheets. All right. Walter Alcorn from Consumer Technology Association's next.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to testify. My name is Walter Alcorn. I'm the Vice President for Environmental Affairs at the Consumer Technology Association. I just want to take a couple of minutes to address a couple of the environmental related issues that I've heard as reasons to support this legislation. And by the way, the Consumer Technology Association, we represent more than 2,000 companies in the manufacturing, retail, and installation of consumer technology, primarily consumer electronics companies. So my 2 points are this. First of all, we agree that e-waste is an issue, but it's been some time since e-waste was a fast-growing part of the municipal waste stream. In fact, according to the US EPA, we are now the fastest declining part of the municipal solid waste stream, and it's driving me crazy because they only have data to 2015. But hopefully, as they continue to track that, they'll show that continued deceleration of e-waste generation. More specifically, though, to this legislation, I've also heard some people claim that if you don't pass this legislation, then we're going to see a lot of devices going in the trash, going into landfills. One of the things that we do at CTA every couple of years is we do a comprehensive survey of consumers and ask them, what are they doing with their devices when they're done with them? Are they going to reuse? Are they throwing them in the trash? What are they doing with them? And here's what we found. We've heard mostly today from folks talking about mobile devices, so I'll just stick to those data. Only 2% of U.S. consumers say they are throwing away their device, their mobile device, whenever they're done with it. 2%. What's happening much, much more commonly, and this won't be a surprise, is people are trading them in. There's value in these mobile devices, and they're also giving them away to friends and family. They're also selling them online and sometimes in person. The reason that there's value in these devices is because they are being reused. There's not very much recycling value in an old smartphone, to be honest. Materially, doesn't have that much really good stuff in there anymore. You really have to be a pretty high-end recycler to get good stuff out of what's in a phone. These all have value because they're being reused. So what I think it's important to understand is these are not devices that are going into landfills. They're actually going back into the reuse market and being used again. And I do understand there are people that want more of that business. I get it, totally understand, but saying that these things are going to landfill is not a reason to pass legislation like this. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the members? There being none, thank you very much for your time. We have Brad McDougall from AIM. I haven't seen Brad in a while.
Good afternoon. My name is Brad McDougall. I serve as Vice President for Government Affairs at AIM, Associated Industries of Massachusetts. Submitted written testimony, so I will dispense with the full reading of that, but just wanted to come before you today for highlighting not only our concern and our continued concern on this bill, but just wanted to highlight in particular that as a representative of over 3,500 companies and the issue that this represents, the language that's in this bill, and putting a spotlight on the impacts on the broader employer community than those that have already been talked about for the last couple of hours here, and that our concerns broaden to, chip makers, microchip processors, people that make things relating to robots, industrial manufacturers. So there is a much broader array of Massachusetts employers, from the Berkshires to the North Shore, Fall River, that we work with on a daily basis, that we've talked to, that have expressed concern about this. So again, like any other bill, would be happy to discuss any of those particular concerns or instances, but very much happy to continue to work with you and share information relating to the bill. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from members? Representative Dom.
So I may ask a question that you're not able to answer, but I wanted to ask a manufacturer the question. Can you give us a sense of what percentage of profit is based in the maintenance contracts that companies give to consumers or offer to consumers when they buy the products?
Yeah, I don't know the exact answer to that. It's definitely another marketplace, but it's something I can do some research on and get back to you on.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions from members? Thank you for your testimony, and you can give information to be helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman.
Brad actually reminded us again that the committee does take written testimony, so anybody who did not feel like coming up and want to present something in writing, please do. My email box is suffering because it needs more stuff in it. So, next up is Ming Chow, Associate Professor from Tufts University.
Afternoon. Good afternoon, Representative Chan, Senator Feeney, the committee. Thank you so much. So, my name is Ming Chow, and I'm Associate Teaching Professor at Tufts University, and I've also been teaching cybersecurity for 15 years. Yes. The fact of the matter is, anything, hardware or software, can be reverse engineered. People are going to find out, and they will find out. We break stuff all the time to unravel the truth. Security and technology have almost no geographical borders. So other countries, Ukraine, they don't care about our laws here. Other countries, they don't care about our laws here. They're just going to help them. They're just going to break stuff. What's amazing is, and there's already a proliferation of information on hacking that includes documents, videos, source code, custom firmware, custom software, from a lot of the things that other parties, other participants have talked about today, including John Deere, video game consoles, webcams, medical devices, all publicly available. Washing machines, even that information, all publicly available. List goes on. Where can you find all this? GitHub, personal websites, YouTube, okay? Details of insecurities of such devices are already exposed on Shodan. Plenty of articles have been written on it. Once the details are out, sure, you can do a DMCA violation on it, but the information's already out. It's already hard to get back, okay? Most devices were also not built with security in mind, okay? Security by obscurity is not the answer. We're all going to find out somehow in some way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from membership? There being none, thank you very much. Next up is Tia Sutton from the Track and Engineering Manufacturers Association.
Good afternoon, Chairman Chan, Feeney, and members of the committee. I'm Tia Sutton, here today on behalf of the Truck and Engine Manufacturers Association, or EMA. We represent the world's leading manufacturers of commercial vehicles, as well as on- and off-highway engines used in several applications, including trucks, buses, and construction and farm equipment. The bills today that we are discussing broadly define digital electronic product. As such, they'd apply to all the products manufactured by EMA's members, and they'd allow anyone to access and change the microprocessors on engines, vehicles, and equipment that control critical safety, emissions, and performance systems. They'd result in significant adverse unintended consequences to the products manufactured by EMA's members. Such digital right to repair legislation simply is not needed for farm and construction equipment, commercial vehicles, or the engines that power them. Farm equipment manufacturers and dealers, as we've already heard, have committed to making service and repair information available to end users by 2021, and on-highway vehicles are already covered both by existing state law and an MOU signed in 2015. Further, federal EPA regulations already require that engine manufacturers make the same service information available to aftermarket service providers as they do to their dealers. The bills just go too far. They'll create unnecessary confusion, complications, burdens, and risks for users and manufacturers alike, and lead to significant adverse safety, environmental, and security impacts. Correct use of service information, such as diagnostic and repair, on the complex machinery manufactured by EMA members requires highly trained and skilled personnel. Allowing unfettered access to service information to untrained individuals will undermine the integrity of the equipment and allow for safety features like braking systems and anti-rollover controls to be altered and compromised. It will also increase the likelihood that untrained personnel will unintentionally or intentionally illegally alter or disable federally mandated emission control systems, and such illegal tampering is increasingly occurring today, especially on farm and construction equipment and trucks. EPA recently announced a national initiative to respond to numerous instances of engine tampering across the country, some of which include the use of software that alters or disables digitally controlled emission technologies. Tampering contributes substantial excess pollution that harms public health and air quality. And allowing access to software controlling federally regulated systems also exposes owners and operators to both civil and possibly criminal liability for tampering. The bills fail to contain any safeguards or restrictions to prevent or mitigate the risk of cybersecurity incidents. Widespread and unfettered access to service information increases the opportunity for hackers to improperly obtain or tamper with such information. We've already seen news articles describing instances of hacking on cranes and other large off-highway equipment. The bills will just make those efforts easier. For all these reasons, EMA requests that any digital right to repair bills clarify that all on- and off-highway engines, vehicles, and equipment are expressly excluded. They're not the type of consumer goods that appear to be the focus of the bill and already are covered by existing state and federal laws and manufacturer commitments. They'll create enormous safety, environmental, and security risks and liability exposure. So I will wrap up since my time has expired, but we really just want to highlight the concerns that we have as well as the concerns that could occur here in the state of Massachusetts. I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you. I assume we have your written testimony?
Yes.
Okay, so any questions from members? There being none, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We have Jacqueline Gonzalez from Power Mobile.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Gonzalez Johnson. I'm coming here on behalf as a consumer But I'm also speaking on behalf of my husband, who is a repair technician for the last 8 years, and we rely on that business. But most importantly, we rely on making our customers happy. Anywhere you go to fix your cell phone at Apple, if you go to T-Mobile, if you go to Verizon, the prices are extremely high. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous because I wasn't really supposed to be speaking, but as a mother of 3 children and as an owner of a business, cell phone repair, we have all the newest phones. We have the iPhone XR, all these new phones that Apple is coming out with. The newer the device, the most likely we won't be able to repair your device. The iPhone XR, I broke 2 of them in the last 3 months. And as a cell phone repair business owner, it's really like, it hurts my pride to have to walk into Apple and fix that phone because I know that, one, I have to pay $400 just for the repair when I can buy that screen, if you guys pass this law, for about $180 for the iPhone XR. When I walked into Apple with all 3 of my phones, they didn't repair them. They just got rid of them and gave me a new phone. And a new phone's great, but I had to back it up. I had to travel 2 hours home because that was the nearest Apple with no service because I couldn't upload it with Apple to get my cell phone service back on. Also, they were repairable. They were repairable. And people are saying that about all the recycled parts. We have bins and bins full of phones that need to be thrown away. So that's probably why they're not in the landfills yet. But you can only use so much product from those phones. You can only use the camera or the lens or the screen, and then the casing's going in the landfill. And on behalf of a consumer, it's really unfair that, we have to take time off to work to make an appointment with Apple when, if you come to our store, we'll have it fixed for you in 15 minutes, lower the price. You're not working, 4 overtime hours just to pay for that new phone when we could have fixed it for you for $200, including the part and the labor. And I think that, in everything that we're trying to do, help, families who are struggling to even pay their rent. Phones are what we rely on no matter what. So for them to be able to have a quick place to fix their cell phones is what should really matter. Everything's for profit in this world. Everything's for profit. You can make your own Chinese food instead of going to a Chinese food restaurant. That's what everyone's doing to save money. And we need to help our consumers and help people who have children who use devices. Your children use devices all day. They don't even play with toys anymore. And every time my child breaks a phone, it's cheaper, if I go to a mom and pop shop to fix the phone. Not because I want to outsell Apple or, but I brought the phone. I paid so much money for the phone. We want to keep the phones, and we don't want to have to go buy a new iPhone XR or something else for way more when we break that phone and there's no way to repair the new phones.
Thank you for taking the time to come down and your patience to testify. Any questions from the panel? There being none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up is I can't read this. Zong Zimmerman. That's Sean. Sorry, they got the essay, and I can't read the rest of it. Thank you for taking time to come down.
So good afternoon. My name is Sam Zimmerman. I am just a hobbyist and a consumer, and I'm here, and I just wanted to say that I would not be in the state of Massachusetts if it weren't for being able to repair devices. Since I was a small child, I had always enjoyed tinkering with things and repairing any device that, my friends had that would break or something. Like one time my friend had a Game Boy, and the backlight had went out, and I was actually able to fix that by buying parts on eBay. But nowadays, things are kind of moving more towards, as other people have talked about, the software lockouts. So, back, in 2014 or so, I could buy parts for my Samsung Galaxy S4, and I could just pop the back off, replace the battery, and it would be super simple to do. It cost me like $15, and I could just do it in 5 minutes. But now, I have a Samsung Galaxy, which is different. The screen is like glued on.